Hello and welcome to a new episode of Africa Today, where we bring you the latest that is happening around the continent. And as usual, we're going to start off with our main reports about what's happening. And we're going to start off with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa calling for the African-made vaccines. Ramaphosa was speaking at a conference on the vaccine production organized by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. The story.
Africa needs the skills and capacity to manufacture its own vaccines. The statement was made by South African President Cyril Ramaphosa on Monday. With only around 2% of the world's total number of shots so far administered, Ramaphosa said Africa needs to harness its own continental capabilities and identify opportunities for collaboration across countries. Speaking at a conference on vaccine production organized by the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, Africa CDC, he said other countries outside the continent could offer technological expertise, financing and investment, suggesting India and Brazil could help with guidance on how they have developed their own generic pharmaceutical industries. Africa has been the region least affected by the pandemic, with 4.35 million cases and 115,000 deaths among an overall population of 1.2 billion, according to the latest figures from Africa CDC. But its slow pace of vaccinations has been blamed on inadequate supplies, lack of financing, and logistical problems. Ramaphosa, whose country is Africa's worst hit by the pandemic, recently criticized developed countries for hogging vaccines, warning vaccine apartheid must come to an end. Also speaking at Monday's conference, Rwanda's President Paul Kagame said that vaccine equity could not be guaranteed by goodwill alone.
And the head of Sudan's ruling council visited West Darfur state on Monday with other senior officials after violence in which scores of people were killed. Here's more on this visit.
Clashes between Arab and Masalit tribesmen that began in early April around El Geneina city led to at least 144 deaths and 233 wounded, according to the West Darfur Doctors Committee. Some casualties have been treated at local hospitals and others have been flown to the capital Khartoum. Brokering lasting peace in Darfur and other parts of Sudan has been one of the main challenges facing the authorities since the overthrow of Omar al-Bashir as president in April 2019. Violence has been on the rise in recent months, despite the signing of a peace deal with some rebel groups that had fought Bashir last year. A joint UN African Union peacekeeping force has withdrawn.
And in the Democratic Republic of Congo, an official announcement said President Felix Tshisekedi is in full control of the new government, unveiled Monday after a 4-month power struggle with predecessor Joseph Kabila. Here's the story.
The president of the DR Congo, Felix Tshisekedi, had in February named the head of state-owned mining giant Gasemenes, Jean-Michel Sama Lukonde Kyenge, as prime minister. Sama Lukonde succeeded Sylvester Ilonga Ilukamba, who was forced out after a coalition between supporters of Tshisekedi and Kabila broke down. The new government, dubbed the Sacred Union of the Nation, counts 57 members, including 14 women, according to a presidential decree read out over state broadcaster RTNC by the presidential spokesman. Sama Lukonde said the new team's priorities would include security, infrastructure, and electoral reform. Analysts say the challenges are huge for the government of sub-Saharan Africa's largest country by area.
And welcome back. We're joined right now over the phone by Dr. Salah Abdullah, a political expert. Thank you for joining us, sir.
Good afternoon, welcome.
Good afternoon to you and a happy Ramadan to you, sir. Sir, how do you see the African ties with Egypt in recent years?
Well, of course, the African ties with Egypt have been increased too much since President Abdel Fattah Sisi started his
Yes.
era as president to Egypt. His policy is to return back the strong relations between Egypt and Africa, which was in Nasser days. And of course, this process succeeded to a great extent. Now Egypt have a good relation, a strong relation
Yes.
with Sudan, and I think we see the cooperation between Egypt and Sudan in the question of the Ethiopian dam. Also, Egypt has a strong relation with Uganda, and we see that there is many agreements happened lately between Egypt and Uganda. Tanzania, Egypt is building a dam in Tanzania, and this is, of course, a very good step. Burundi and Rwanda, Congo, all these countries we are cooperating with in many items, and we have some of our businessmen are having some projects in these countries, and also there is cooperation between the universities in Egypt and universities in that country, and in the matter of the youth activities. The same thing happened with other African countries like South Africa, like Nigeria, and countries in the midst of the continent. Also in the question of health, you see that there is cooperation in the matter of COVID-19 between Egypt and the African countries. Egypt is sending many aids and many aspects to these countries, and there is cooperation by information and by scientific way information. So generally, the relation between Egypt and Africa is very now much better than before and more stronger, and is going well.
Yes.
Also, if we look to North Africa, I think the visit of President Said of Tunisia was clear that how the President of Tunisia was supporting Egypt in the question of the Ethiopian dam. Even Ethiopia, you have some problems with us about the dam. There is cooperation in many other aspects. The relation is not all, negative. There is many positive points in the relation between Egypt and Ethiopia. So, of course, the Egyptian policy and the Egyptian process and the Egyptian plan is going very well toward.
Which brings me to the next question, sir. It's about the Egyptian African Relations Committee that was held to discuss strengthening Egypt's stance in Africa. What does the actual word Egypt's stance mean?
Can you repeat the question, please?
There was a meeting of the Egyptian African Relations Committee, and it was used to discuss strengthening Egypt's stance in Africa rather. What does it mean to strengthen Egypt's stance in Africa?
Well, of course, this committee wants to increase the economic relation between Africa and Egypt. You know, the economy now is very important to the continent. And most of the problems which happen in the African continent, like terrorism or illegal immigration or violence, is reflected because of the poor economic situation of the continent. So, to find a way of increasing the economic activity, either through local investors or foreign investors in Africa, is very important. Because if you increase the number of the projects in Africa, this means that you will find more chances of work to the young generation, more stable social life. If, as example, the agriculture projects increase, this means that the food will be available for the African. You can end the famines in the continent. The famines in the African society is one of the problems of disease in the continent. So this committee is working towards how to increase the economic power, either industrial or agriculture or scientific in all the African continents.
Sir, what about the relations between Egypt and the Democratic Republic of Congo, with the country's president visiting Cairo in February? How would you describe relations right now between Cairo and Kinshasa?
President visiting Cairo in February. How would you describe relations right now between Cairo and
Well, relation between Egypt and Congo is a very old relation. Also, return back to Nasser's days, there was a great cooperation between Congo and Egypt, and Egypt was supporting the revolution in Congo. Nowadays, we return back to the strong relation with Congo, where there is many projects between the two countries. There is many cooperation in the either economic or scientific or through information between the both countries. Of course, the president of Congo now, the president of the African Union, and he is Egypt, and the president is keen about the fight of solving the problems of the Ethiopian dam, and he tried his best in the last month by the meeting which happened in Kinshasa. So I guess that the relation between Egypt and Congo will be more and more will be increased to a great extent in many aspects, either agriculture or industrial or through universities and so on. Congo can be one of the countries which is good supporter to Egypt, and Egypt also is supporting Congo in many aspects, and both countries can play a great role in the River Nile area and in Africa generally.
What about the economic integration within the African continent itself? Given the COVID-19 pandemic, how do you see this?
You asked about the effect of COVID-19 on economy in Africa. This is your question.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Of course, COVID-19's effect on economy, not in Africa alone, and the whole world is a big problem. You know, in Africa, as example, the number of employees who lost their own jobs has been increased. Many activities have been stopped, like tourists, like many factories have been closed.
Yes.
So, of course, the economy in Africa is suffering because of COVID-19, and increased the poverty in the continent. Many countries, having, some protective measures, like Egypt, as example, is supporting the aspect or the project which stopped or failed or decreased, like hotels, like tourist people. They give them some loans or some aids and so on and so on. But of course, some countries in Africa is very poor. They can't do that protective measure. That's why the suffering in this country is horrible. and the number of unemployment increase, and this, of course, this circle will lead to more violence in these societies and will lead to more poverty and more diseases in this society. The international help and aid to Africa is not enough, to face this catastrophe. So the question in Africa, of course, is not all Africa. In some countries in Africa is poor, but some African countries like Egypt, like Algeria, like South Africa, they are facing the problem and they have protective measures for that catastrophe.
Yes, Dr. Salah Abdallah, unfortunately we're out of time, so Dr. Salah Abdallah, a political expert, thank you so much for joining us over the phone and giving us your insight on Egyptian-African relations. And this brings us to the end of this episode of Africa Today, but stay tuned for more updates on Nile TV.